Hello, I'm Mayor Watt. I'm the guy that runs that site right there. If you go over to the site and join it, you become a citizen of ohmTown. You'll be able to pick out which channels you get news from. Come and visit me here every day, 6 p.m. until 7 p.m. Run a little bit longer periodically, but what the site is all about and what I'm doing is pretty much one and the same. The website gathers news, filters it into 6 categories: create, news, education, entertainment, social, and technology. Then I go through it and choose about 20 articles to highlight here in this 1 hour show. I give a little bit of my perspective, maybe some actual additional context to it based on what I have read or what I have seen in some other area. And inside these 6 categories are about 50 shows. And I've been saying for the last 70 days, today's day 70, yeah. I've been streaming for 70 days every day since the beginning of the year. And I've been asking if you are interested in hosting or co-hosting one of these shows. It's just 1 hour a week. Basically, you do a deeper dive, do a 1 hour show with me. We talk about that particular topic, whatever it might be. Something that you're interested in, something you're passionate about. Because it's fun to bounce things off of a host or co-host. And my aspiration here is to run a community of 50 shows. And so I think that I could do more shows, but I got to slowly get there. And maybe you don't want to commit to a full project like ohmTown or a full show every day. And that's why this opportunity is out there. If you are interested in it, just get in touch with me. With that in mind, I think I'll probably stop saying that at the beginning of the show. I think this is my last day of doing that. And I'm going to continue to do the daily news show and then add to it additional shows. That said, let's get into the news for the day. This first article is someone sold a $1 million clip art rock NFT for under a penny by mistake. And the article is amid all the hype and furor about blue chip NFT collections like Bored Ape Yacht Club and CryptoPunks, you may have missed what may be the ultimately absurd status symbol of crypto ether rock, a collection of 100 cartoon pet rocks based on free clip art that have sold for millions of dollars. And a few days ago, according to blockchain records, an NFT collector accidentally listed their valuable ether rock for 444 way, I guess, instead of 444 ETH, which is Ethereum, just over $1 million, and someone snapped it up immediately. Wow. Okay, so let's click this link. And I'm going to copy this into chat. And I think from now on, I'm also there. I may not, say out loud that I'm copying it into chat, or there might be a little bit of a dead air, so to speak, as I copy and paste the link into chat. So if you're listening to this in the podcast, that's what's going on when there's a little bit of dead air. I might edit it out, but I don't really like editing the stream. It tends to give the perception that I'm removing something, and I really don't. The way that I talk, my reaction, my responses, my additional context, so to speak, is legitimate, and I don't edit it in or out. That said, this is a Vice.com article written by Edward Ongweso Jr. And it says someone sold a $1 million clip art rock, apparently free too, NFT for under a penny by mistake. And my GMI tweeted a hapless trader who claimed the coveted free clip art rock JPEG was theirs. I don't know how it can be free, yet it's been turned into an NFT. I mean, I understand how it can, but I don't understand why it exists as an NFT if it's a clip art. I mean, right? That's what it says here. Cartoon pet rocks based on free clip art that have sold for millions of dollars. It's free clip art. I guess the additional modifications, I haven't even looked into it. I don't know if there's going to be an image of it. In one click, my entire net worth went worth of negative $1 million gone. Is there any hope? Am I a GMI? A collector who goes by Dino Dealer, or Dino Dealer, tweeted late Wednesday claiming the rock was theirs and that a bot had sniped it. Can snipers show mercy? According to the EtherRock website, the current owner has listed the NFT for 234 ETH, or around $600,000. And apparently that's the rock. Okay. You can go over and check that out. It's over at vice.com. You can read more about it. The next article is Putin wants a clash of civilizations. Is the West falling for it? I'm going to click this link. That's all this article says in the snippet. A clash of civilizations is never a good idea, is what it says. This article's over at the New York Times. It's a guest essay. Has a bald eagle sitting on a deflated globe, like a beach ball kind of globe. And it's written by Thomas Meany. And it says here, Mr. Meany writes about U.S. foreign policy, international relations, and history for The New Yorker, the London Review of Books, and other publications. And it starts out by saying, amid the point-blank horror of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the expanding war zone of Europe, or in Europe, seems to have become a comfort zone for much of America's political establishment. Russia's invasion has also provided the geopolitical equivalent of CPR for NATO. Yeah. You know, if everything's going fine, nobody talks about NATO. When something starts hitting the fan, that's when NATO gets provoked into making or needing to make statements. I mean, it's like complaining. People don't complain when everything is hunky-dory, but they complain the moment that somebody is, parking their car in your driveway or throwing eggs at your windows. Why would anybody say anything? There's a lot of observations that I see that seem kind of weird to me. Again, my comments are my own. The statements that I say are, I think, clear that they're coming from the articles that I'm reading. But when a country invades another country and seemingly without any context to it, although the talk was statements like denazification and so on, but then you see the responses. I mean, shutting down media because they're actually disclosing what's happening in Ukraine is not really an emblem of denazification or trying to free a people. It's the embodiment of oppression. I don't know. I can't I choose these articles to draw attention to it, but is the West falling for a clash of civilizations? No, the West is responding to an action that outright is absurd. There was no reason to invade Ukraine. There is no reason to blow up buildings. And it's really up to the Russian people to respond and say that this isn't right. And it's up to the Ukrainian people to fight back and defend their country. And every other country, as pretty much except for one, seemingly seems to be on the other side of the Russian aggression. We're all saying in unison that this is absurd, wrong, and should be stopped. Yet, things like the ISS are being brought into this sphere of aggression. So I'm going to continue on. I want you to go over to the New York Times and read the entirety of this article. That's why I bring it to your attention. So that you can see for yourself what somebody might be saying. I kind of just tease it that this is being said and give a little bit of context to it. But let's keep on going, because I'll end up, like I say, pretty much in every episode, going down the rabbit hole of this. The next article is in the Continuity Report channel. Dune writer eyeing third film and investigating other cinematic prospects for the franchise. In the last line of Denis Villeneuve's Dune, Zendaya's character says this is only the beginning. She might as well have been talking about the Dune franchise itself. Villeneuve is currently in pre-production on Dune Part 2, which is expected to begin filming in late summer, and a television series centered on the Bene Gesserit. If you have not seen the new iteration of Dune, you really do need to go and look it up and watch it. It is a spectacular, to me, rendition of the book. So let's go over to the site and take a look at it. This is a Variety article written by Zach Sharf. And the scale at which Dune exists, this new iteration of it, is spectacular. It is like the Elden Ring of movies. It's just massive in scale and doesn't seem really to end. It opens up the door to the world building from Dune, and there's so much more. They haven't spoken really about much in the depth wise in the movies, or I should say in part one. They just didn't talk about much. It's always skimming the surface, but it's still deep. It's still massive in scope, and I can see the writing on the wall about where this could go. But a series centered on the Bene Gesserit, I don't know. It's going to have to be interesting to keep people, because the Bene Gesserit is kind of this high-minded, lofty goal type of sect of humanity. It's not really something that when you first hear about it, you're like, ooh, it really kind of pulls you into it. But the various houses fighting is something that that pulls you in. It'll be interesting to see if something bigger comes out of it. It was originally set to serve as showrunner. Spates was originally set to serve as showrunner for the aforementioned HBO Max television series officially titled Dune: The Sisterhood. But he dropped out of the project in November 2019 so he could focus solely on writing Dune Part 2. But that's not all Spates was tasked with by Warner Media. And there's something going on with Warner Media. I'm not sure if I've got a link in here, but let's see. Maybe it gets mentioned in here. Yeah, I'm not sure. Okay. Well, this is a big project, and so I want a cinematic universe of Dune to exist far beyond these two movies. So it'll be really interesting to keep an eye on it. So keep an eye on it. More is coming. The next article is over in the continuity report. Hulu has added unlimited DVR for all live TV subscribers at no extra charge. Hulu's getting competitive with YouTube TV on the DVR front, and there are others that are like DirecTV, which became AT&T TV, which became AT&T TV Now, which became DirecTV again. I think that's where we're at now. Anyway, they added unlimited DVR, but you had to pay for it. And I was an early adopter of DirecTV Now, the streaming service, and they hobbled it initially and promised that it was going to be, I recall being promised that it was going to be added, but it never got added. And then they raised a monthly fee again and again and again. But Hulu just threw it on there apparently for all live TV subscribers at no extra charge, which not bad. I wish I liked their interface. I'd subscribe to them too, but I don't. Hulu is finally getting competitive with YouTube TV on the DVR front. The Disney-controlled streamer next month will unlock a new unlimited DVR for all Hulu plus live TV subscribers at no additional fee. On April 13th, Hulu will introduce unlimited DVR for the TV customers available across their entire lineup of 80 plus channels. And I only need a certain number of channels. I don't need 200 channels. I'm not watching the sports channels. Shocker, I know. Anyway, this article is over at Variety, written by Todd Spangler, and has a giant Hulu logo on their cover art. Let's see what else might be interesting in here. The move follows Hulu's bundling of Disney Plus and ESPN Plus with Hulu Plus live TV subscriptions as of December, alongside a $5 monthly price hike. Hulu's live TV service is $69.99 a month, with ads in the subscription VOD content, or $75.99 with no ads in the VODs. Yeah, I guess ads amount to $6 worth of engagement per month. So now I think that's pretty much what it has been. For years and years, I think $5 has been the price of ads per user. I know that when I was running, I used to have two different businesses that were subscription based, and they were charging either $2 or $5 a month, seemingly low amount, but people didn't want to pay. They wanted the service for free. So there was, I couldn't compete with free, What I was doing, I was stopping spam from ever leaving spammer servers. Kind of a neat service, but it is no more. So go over to Variety. Go over to variety.com, read this article, Hulu adding unlimited DVR for all live TV subscribers at no extra charge. And there's some more context to it. But you can go and check it out. The next article is in the continuity report, and that's a channel all about movies. Disney CEO Bob Chapek apologizes to LGBTQ employees, announces pause for political donations in Florida. This is a reaction to quite a bit of social outrage regarding the legislation in Florida referred to as the Don't Say Gay bill, which basically stifles any type of communication in academic circles. And through that kind of chilling effect, it inevitably impacts other things. And if it gets a hold of society, then, in that region, in that area, it could gain more traction. Oh, look, it was well received, so let's expand it. That kind of a thing, a slippery slope, as it were. Well, Disney heard the message, and the CEO responded with, well, we're going to pause donations. And for all intents and purposes, Disney actually donated to darn near everybody that they thought could influence to Disney's benefit. So I don't think that it was necessarily, in my interpretation, I don't think that it was necessarily something directly tied to influencing LGBTQ plus policy. It was just policy in favor of Disney. Because if you don't donate, then you're invisible to politicians. You even with the way that politics are, your money is your vote, essentially, or your voice, I should say, in discussion with politicians. If I try to have a one-on-one with a politician and there isn't some, and this is my perspective again, this is just the way that I see things, I'm not going to get a favorable response or emotion simply by having some random conversation with a politician. I need to rise from the noise, and the only way really to do that is either social justice seeking, where I start a movement and people start talking about it, or I donate a ton of money or a large enough sum to rise to the surface. Cynical maybe, but that is the way that it is, at least in my perception. Happy to discuss it more if you have a different perspective. But this is an article over at Variety written by Adam B. Very. And it says here, it is clear that this is not just an issue about a bill in Florida, but instead yet another challenge to basic human rights. You needed me to be a stronger ally in the fight for equal rights, and I let you down. I am sorry. Hey, right on the nose. Unfortunately, it took controversy for this response to be evoked. But if it's been resolved, it's been resolved, and let's see if the lesson sticks. Sometimes it's not on the radar because it's not necessarily perceived as a concern until somebody draws the attention to the concern. So the next article is in the Mobile Channel. High power laser being constructed for a new experimental facility. Lawrence Livermore National Laboratories. Decades of leadership in developing high energy lasers is being tapped to provide a key component of a major upgrade to SLAC, National Accelerator National Laboratories LINAC Coherent Light Source, LCLS. So this is an article written for phys.org, and it's written by Charlie Ozelin from the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. It kind of has a fisheye lens of a lab. Everybody's in clean room type of outfits. Somewhat clean room. They have exposed faces, but over the next several years, LLNL's Advanced Photon Technologies program will design and construct one of the world's most powerful petawatt laser systems for installation in an upgraded matter in extreme conditions experimental facility at LCLS, funded by the Department of Energy's Office of Science Fusion Energy Sciences Program. Yikes. That petawatt. I wonder what that sounds like. I wonder if the coherent light of the laser can actually be heard. There was a movie back in the 80s. Let's see. Yeah, I think it was called Real Genius. Yeah. So back in 1985, there was a movie called Real Genius where they um, they basically developed a laser and it fired on somebody's um, house. I don't want to ruin it. You'll have to if you are watching this and you were born after 85 and you've never heard of Real Genius, go and watch Real Genius. You'll get a kick out of it, I think. And it doesn't really relate to this other than it has a laser involved. But it makes a sound when they fire it in the movie. So I wonder if it makes that sound in the real world and not just in the world of movies. So if you're interested in this, go over to phys.org and take a look. So the next article is in the Warcrafters channel, and that's going to be a show about first-person shooters and real-time sim and role-playing games and other games that are more focused on action. And it says Microsoft has revealed, Halo games don't run on Steam Deck. Not yet, I'm sure. Microsoft has revealed which of its games will be able to run on the Steam Deck, but there are some unfortunate absences thanks to anti-cheat. We'll see what happens. It says Halo Infinite, the Master Chief Collection, Gears of War 5, and Microsoft Flight Simulator X won't be supported, which Microsoft says is due to anti-cheat. There's some startling omissions. While I wouldn't expect Flight Sim to have the best time on handheld anyway, it's a shame to see Halo Infinite on the list of unsupported games. Of course, you can still stream them through the likes of GeForce Now, which is what I was about to say. But running directly on Linux is a no-go. Well, you can install Windows now on the Steam Deck. So there's hope. There is hope. Maybe. We'll see. Never say never, and this may just be within the context of the supported systems at the time. So let's click this link. It takes us over to PC Gamer. It's an article written by Molly Taylor. And it says, Halo no. Haha. Anyway. I don't have much context more to add to this. There is more in the article, but I always draw attention to the fact that you can listen to the article on PC Gamer. You don't have to read it. You can just go over to the web page and actually click a little red play button, and it will read to you the article. Let's see if there's anything else in here. Pause that. On the bright side, this is another quote from the article. On the bright side, other great Microsoft games have been plonked in the playable category, meaning that they can work with some small tweaks here and there. Sea of Thieves. Wow. That's interesting. You should be able to play both Forza Horizon 4 and Horizon 5. And Microsoft has a full list of games verified over on Steam. So you can go and get that link over at pcgamer.com. Just click the link that's in chat or in the description wherever I'm hosting this. The next article is in Tabletop Nights channel, and it's a tabletop gaming show. This says Merge Games to publish Farming Sim Sunnyside. Publisher Merge Games announced it has partnered with developer Rainy Games to release Farming Sim Sunnyside, and the game will launch for PC, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and Nintendo Switch later in 2022. And Sunnyside is a farming sim with social sim, combat, exploration elements, and players start with a plot of land in an aging Japanese countryside town. So let's click this link and go over there. And this is an rpgamer.com article written by Alex Fuller. And it says, let's see, I think that's pretty much it. Players start with a plot of land in an aging Japanese countryside town. They develop their homestead utilizing new technologies to help grow crops and care for livestock while becoming involved in the community and developing relationships with others. There's some pictures over at rpgamer.com, and go and check it out. It has an interesting, looks like it has an interesting art style. I'm not sure if, yeah, I won't go through them all. So I want you to go over to the site and check it all out. The next article is in the Order of the Grape. If you have questions and you're in my chat, just plop a message down and let me know what your question is, and I'll talk to you about it. This next article is in the Order of the Grape channel. It's about wine, whiskey, other things that are tangentially related. It says here, say what you want about bourbon boom in recent decades. For drinkers and mixologists alike, the rye renaissance has been equally exciting. Indeed, the style of revival owes a large debt to the bartending community, which embraced the spicy, herbaceous whiskey to shine a light once more on forgotten classics like Sazerac, Old Pal, and I don't know how to pronounce that. Vieux Carré? Interesting. I've never even heard of that. I'm obviously not a subject matter expert in bourbon. So let's click this link. So this is how to drink rye whiskey according to a Canadian bartender, and it has a moose holding a glass. The article is written by Tim McCurdy, and the illustration that you see is by Ariel Basson. Go and check it out. I wonder if they'll sell their artwork as NFTs. Wouldn't that be interesting? That renewed interest, so a quote from this article is, that renewed interest has seen major U.S. distillers revive heritage brands and others launch new products in the space. So if you're a drinker, you'll want to go over to vinepair.com and read more about this article. It says here, since 2009, volume sales of rye whiskey in the United States have grown a staggering 1,706%, reaching 1.6 million 9-liter cases by the end of 2021, according to the Distilled Spirits Council. And they provide a link to that PDF, which you might find interesting. And so there's more to this article, and it says, as a quick primer, one of the many factors that govern U.S. rye whiskey production is the use of at least 51% of the grain in a mash bill. Mash bill is basically the ingredients. This is not the case across the border. The major difference between Canadian and American rye is that we don't tend to use a mash bill of different grains. We essentially ferment and distill each grain on their own and then blend after maturation. Interesting. That's actually very interesting. What a great article. So go over to VinePair and read the rest of this article, because it says how to drink rye whiskey. But I just gave you a little bit of context of the article, and how to drink I didn't disclose. So go over and read that article and then come back to me tomorrow. Talk to me about it. This next article is over in the Stock Marketeers channel. It says, keywords: Yale professor is keeping tabs on companies still operating in Russia despite Ukraine invasion, and many have now pulled out. A Yale professor and his research team are keeping tabs on companies that are still operating in Russia following its invasion of Ukraine, and they update it. So that is one heck of a URL that I just posted in my chat. So like all MarketWatch articles, what it starts out as and the URL and the title sometimes change. And I draw attention to this because sometimes the context of the article changes as well as the title, but the URL does not. So it's the living web, and it's what I tell some people when they are doing work. Um, I'm trying to be nebulous in my context there, but um, you have to go and look and verify, and later on, if the URL is the same but the context has changed and you reference that um, old data without updating it, you can actually impact the integrity of your research. So you have to be careful about how you reference the living web. This article over on MarketWatch is written by Sierra Lenane. A flood of companies have announced plans to suspend or end operations in Russia this week. This article was first published on March 8th and has been updated all the way up until March 11th at 7:23 a.m. So when you go over there, keep that in mind. MarketWatch always references symbols, businesses within the article, and you'll see them at the very top of the article. But as you scroll down, it's kind of a pretty standard template for how they process stuff and publish it. But it says, a Yale professor and his research team are keeping tabs on companies that are still operating in Russia in the wake of its invasion of neighboring Ukraine, and they monitor it throughout the week. I believe they're going to continue monitoring it, but we already know about a lot of them. McDonald's is bowing out. Coca-Cola is bowing out. Starbucks. Credit card processors are bowing out. Various websites are bowing out, providing a means of purchasing or selling. Let's see. They say Kellogg, Honeywell suspended business and business operations in Russia. Now, the thing about this, all of these, is that Putin has said that he's going to nationalize all of the assets that remain in Russia if the company exits, which basically that means that it's going to become property of the various oligarchs of Russia, and quite possibly, Russia will reactivate those brands, but under their own embodiment. I don't know how they will get away with it, but there you have it. Just like some other sovereign country, if you operate within the confines of the country, you are at the whim of the policy and procedure of that country. Whereas with the EU and with the United States and our interaction in intellectual property, I can extend an IP thing like a copyright or a trademark or a patent. I can extend it over to the EU, and it will be treated as essentially one thing. You can't use my trademark in the EU, just like you can't use my trademark in the United States. Well, it doesn't quite work that way in other countries. If I go to China, there can be another company there that uses my trademark in my sector, and because of the success of my business, somebody's already spun it up and taken hold of it. And so I would have to fight the good fight to try and get it back, let's say. I don't do business in China or Russia, so I don't have direct experience with running into this. I just know about the rules and regulations, policy, the ecosystem of that space. So all of these companies are actually quite possibly going to lose all of the assets within Russia as they exit that space. So this article goes into great detail. It's quite interesting, and I assume that the source is all from this Yale professor and basically people disclosing that they are bowing out of this space. So this next article, and like all of my episodes. It's an eclectic array. Some might call it a hot mess, but I call it eclectic. This is in the Distillerist channel, and its Emporia aims to raise $20,000 for Ukraine. Spirits importer Emporia is donating 40 cases of Ukrainian vodka Staritsky Levitsky private cellar to raise 20,000 pounds or 26,235 US dollars for the British Red Cross Ukraine appeal. I'll click the link and take you over there. It's thespiritsbusiness.com. It's an article written by Melita Keeley. And I haven't seen this vodka, but I may go and get some if it's in my space. If I can find it, I might get some just to try it out. Obviously, it has a good, social good, a social cause, which is always great when you're purchasing something, that there's a humanitarian effort or a social cause that's tied to it. Many modern businesses are doing exactly that, and even making it a core tenet of their operations. So in this case, maybe they'll make more than 26,000 US dollars or 20,000 pounds to help the humanitarian efforts in Ukraine. It's going to take more than that. Let me tell you, Russia's bombing the hell out of them. So the next article is in The Word in Tech. Google, Apple, Meta, and others call on Texas to drop the anti-trans legislation. Again, this is one of those things where organizations and people who are anti-big government leverage big government to institute certain, some might say, oppressive policies. And in this case, it's they're asking, more than 60 companies are asking Governor Greg Abbott to abandon recent legislation that defines gender-affirming medical treatments for transgender minors as child abuse, which is what was done. It's a blanket rule for something that requires context and fidelity. And unfortunately, there are mindsets that say that is just perfect. That is just fine. Everybody gets treated the same, but it's in an oppressive manner, right? Whereas someone like me says everybody should be treated the same, and that's it. Everybody should be treated the same. We're all special in our unique way. We're all human beings. I respect you. You respect me. It isn't about you as a categorized entity. It is the fidelity of you treating me with respect, understanding, compassion, sympathy, empathy, all of the E's. And it's founded in mutual respect. Even if you're a complete stranger, I respect you as a human being. Now, if you treat me horribly, that fidelity narrows down to, I don't like you. If you're treating me like garbage, I don't want to be around you. I'm not going to go to a movie with you. I'm not going to even talk to you. There's no middle ground for me to find where we can hang out together if you treat me like garbage. This is kind of one of those things where they just want to treat everybody the same in an oppressive manner without any fidelity. And I think that they should abandon this. The policy creates fear for employees and their families, especially those with transgender children, who might now be faced with choosing to provide the best possible medical care for their children. It seeks to forbid people leaving the state for treatment and for procedures. And this article is written for The Verge, and it's written by James Vincent. And let's see here. Maybe it'll go into the policy creates fear for employees and their families, especially those with transgender children who might now be faced with choosing to provide the best possible medical care for their children, but risk having those children removed by Child Protective Services for doing so. It's not just wrong, it has an impact on our employees, our customers, their families, and our work. So that is the letter to the governor. And of course, there are tweets in the article, and it says here at the very bottom of this article, I won't read it all, it's just not my nature to read the entirety of an article here on the stream. It says the order, which many experts say is illegal, is part of a wave of anti-LGBTQ legislation being pushed by conservative lawmakers across the U.S. ahead of midterm elections. In Florida, lawmakers recently passed a law that bans discussion of sexual orientation or gender identity in schools. This wasn't happening in grade schools, by the way. It was mostly discussed in colleges. There is a time and a place to discuss sexual orientation and gender identity, and it's typically not in the grade school level at this level of discussion. But they do talk about sexual orientation and gender identity in schools in general because children are asking questions about it. And like I said in my last episode about this, you shouldn't stop educators from talking about it. They aren't talking about it. Typically, you have activist instructors, teachers everywhere. But most instructors don't throw their bias into the conversation because they're giving a holistic answer. You may have an interaction with an instructor that says otherwise, but I think that it is largely a perception of that, and that particular person needs to be spoken to by the administration of the school. Hey, what is all this? I'm hearing that you have this biased opinion about this, that, or the other, and you're promoting a particular direction or something like that. It's the context. You can't just treat everybody the same unless it is a positive treatment. The moment that it becomes an oppressive event, society will rise up against it. For the most part, particularly in the United States, and in many, many other countries. But sometimes there are oppressive governments that rule with an iron fist, and you end up with things like the Taliban, which rule through fear, not through respect. So the next article is over in the Daily News Show. That's this show. U.S. allies to revoke most favored nation status for Russia. The G7 will announce the move. And President Joe Biden announced Friday that along with the European Union and a group of 7 countries, the U.S. will revoke most favored nation trade status for Russia over its invasion of Ukraine. I'm not surprised. The broad trade shift, which revokes the most favored nation status for Russia, is being taken in coordination with the European Union and group of 7 countries. So where one goes, all go. And in this particular instance, totally understand. We're banning the export of luxury goods to Russia. There's economic sanctions, and then there's war, and you tell me which one you would prefer. If you're a sociopath, you're going to choose war. Because if you look at Ukraine, it's innocent people that are getting deleted from the earth right now. All for some whatever reason. I was having a conversation recently where the conclusion at the end of the discussion was basically that this entire thing was a means to an end to acquire the assets of companies um, and what I think is pushing Russian control all the way over to the river that cuts Ukraine in half. Well, not in half. About a third of it is um, split by a river. I think it's called the Dnieper. And so that's where I think the end game is, and hoping to connect Crimea to all of Russia, and in an effort, if they can take other land, so be it. And I think that's why Belarus is being pulled into this to pull the front into two different sides. This next article is in the Stock Marketeers channel, and it's a section in MarketWatch called Need to Know. Goldman Sachs cuts U.S. GDP forecast to a full point below consensus, as it says recession odds are as high as 35%. Economists at Goldman Sachs have now cut their forecast for growth for the world's largest economy in 2022 to 1.75% from 2% previously, and the consensus of 2.75%. So what is your take on this? This article was written for MarketWatch by Steve Goldstein. There's a little subtitle here, critical information for the trading day, and it shows two people sawing down a tree. I think that it's an interesting picture, but I guess from once the mighty oak, I guess we're going to fall on our face here. The U.S. stock market put in a resilient performance on Thursday, giving the data showing inflation surging to a new 40-year high, even before the impact of the recent sanctions on Russia, which what appeared to be a pretty dismal result from the Russian-Ukrainian meeting of foreign ministers in Turkey, and a surprisingly hawkish decision by the European Central Bank. Basically, Russia's being isolated economically, and I understand it's all of the innocent people in Russia who really, they have no interest in Ukraine. They have no interest in military action anywhere. They just want to, watch Twitch, play games, and work day in, day out so that they can feed their family. They're the ones that are the innocent bystanders of this and somebody's decision to invade a country that for all intents wasn't doing anything wrong. But again, I'm not in the region, so there's some hyper-focused knowledge, context there. Maybe something horribly heinous was actually taking place and nobody knows it, including all of the organizations that watch geopolitics and activities between countries and in country. And I don't know. I'd love to see if something was going on that could even remotely, and it can't be disinformation. It can't be gaslighting stuff. It can't be the garbage that I have seen. It's so insane. Like the conflict is designed to promote people to drive electric vehicles, to raise the gas prices to the point where people are going to go over to electric vehicles. So what? Even if it has nothing to do with electric vehicles, but if people want to go to electric vehicles because gas prices are outrageous, so be it. It has nothing to do with gas prices, though. It has nothing to do. This is a conflict that's built around somebody's desire to take over a portion of the country to connect Crimea or rebuild the band all together. They want all of Ukraine back into Russian control. Well, we'll see what happens. Ukraine's given them a good fight. The Goldman team said, if anything, They may be too positive on the outlook for the U.S. economy. Even after these downgrades, we still see risks around the growth forecast as skewed to the downside, particularly if sanctions escalate or if oil prices rise even further, for example, to the $175 per barrel price target our commodity strategists see as possible. Well, this could be self-fulfilling prophecy, because the moment that you set a target, just like with Intel chipsets had this I don't know how to describe it. It was a guide to to sustain a business model of doubling every 2 years. So everybody had a perceived expectation of performance, and they didn't sit there and say, we want more, faster, better, stronger, compete, everybody go. No, that's not what was happening. Everybody started touting, just like in business, right? A business's sole objective is to make money. Well, no, a business is supposed to produce a good and solve a problem for a customer, whatever it might be. Yes, it makes money, but it doesn't need to be its sole intent. It can have a social cause and still generate adequate revenue. Why isn't that the message as a society? Again, I'm called naive for this mindset, but I'm a capitalist. I've started up businesses. I've run them. I've had to close them because people don't want to pay for a good or a service. Or, I just didn't market long enough. And I didn't seek out angel investors because of other things. But why do we have to have this mindset? With the Intel thing, it was doubling transistors every 2 years. Well, why isn't something revolutionary happening in the space? Suddenly we have an M1 and an M2, a whole new architecture, which trumped everything beforehand. Is it because new technology came down? Yeah, it's because Apple wanted to compete and grow and do leaps and bounds instead of the drip, drip, drip of technology, which is, in some people's cases, the perception is, well, isn't that ironic? Well, now they've got lower power consumptions, greater longevity of their devices. The integrity of the devices is longer. I have yet to have any of my devices fail since I started using Apple products. Everybody needs to compete. And when you set a target and everybody buys into it, and it isn't really good for society or good for for competition, all it does is slow down this growth, this benefit for consumers and society. This here is, you've got the people who are dictating what the profitability is of something, and people are going to buy into it. So what do? You start shorting a stock over here because you're expecting a collapse, or you buy into something hoping that it's going to grow to 175. And so the policy and procedure, the machinations, the subconscious and the psychological impact of setting something like this, there's going to be a massive amount of people who have great wealth literally saying, well, that's the target, and not necessarily trying to do things to lower that cost because they see profit. And wealth without values is worthless. But again, I've been told, well, that's like virtue signaling. Who are you to dictate what a price should be or what somebody does with their investments? Absolutely. You don't have to agree with me. You can counter my argument. Come and talk to me about it. I'd be interested to know your perspective. But I'm giving you my perspective from end to end, right? And it's adjustable. If there is some more information, fine. But what normally happens is somebody will call me a name or something. Yeah, that's a non-starter there, bub. So the next article is Stock Marketeers. Kelly Blue Book, the new Kia 2022 Carnival, it might be Carnival, is roomy enough for your big family, small team, or garage band. Kia's all-new spacious minivan seats up to 8 and has class-leading interior and cargo space and a versatile interior. So let's click this. This is a Market Watch article. It's a section called Kelly Blue Book, written by Colin Ryan. And yes, I am referencing a minivan because anything referred to as the Kia Carnival and is big enough for your family, it just provoked a vision of a clown car and 50 people jumping out of it. And it's a garage orchestra, not a garage band. It's the most powerful minivan in its class, and it's easy to drive. Yeah, it looks like an SUV more than a minivan. Maybe the sliding door is the difference. Is that what separates a minivan from an SUV? So they give some pros, they give some cons. But to me, it looks like an SUV with sliding doors. And I would prefer all cars have sliding doors. That would solve the door ding problem where people next to me are opening their doors and smashing it into my paint job. I respect other people's property too much, I suppose. My car doors have never hit anybody else's car doors. Both because I don't want to do damage to somebody else's property and I don't want to damage mine in the process of doing that. But this looks like a minivan with sliding doors. And I think that's pretty much what separates a minivan from an SUV. I'm scrolling through the article because there isn't really much to say about it. It says that, let's see, let's get down to, there's a bunch of different types. Has V6 option. Kia is technically correct in its claim that the 290 horsepower from the Carnival's 3.5 liter V6 is class leading, although the Chrysler Pacifica comes really close. Really close is what the article says, with 287 horsepower. Yeah. If you can discern the difference between 287 and 290, yeah, you're savant. Let's see. I'm gonna scroll down further. This whole art, I'm scrolling really fast. It might be blurry for you, and I apologize if you're in my stream and watching this. Okay, now I've got to do it the other way because I'm at the bottom of the article and I didn't see the price. I don't think that this starts at $30,000, which is the last number that I saw. So let's see, the 2022 Carnival MPV lineup starts with the LX trim, whose manufacturer suggested retail price is $32,300. So yeah, I guess it does. The other trim levels are EX, SX, and SX Prestige. The last model tops the Carnival MPV range at $46,300, which, heck, that's not a bad price. I'm starting to believe it more. I think that the difference between an SUV and a minivan is that the minivan is lower to the ground and has sliding doors. But again, I think all cars should have sliding doors at this point, including the front doors. They should slide forward, and then you can just grab them or push a button and it slides back and locks in place. And obviously you can grab it and pull it just like any other minivan door, but so neat. There you go. This is the first time that I've referenced a minivan in a stream or probably brought it up in conversation. I'm just not a minivan person. So the next article is in the Law Nerd article, Law Nerd channel. Pardon me one second. Sorry about that. In the Law Nerd channel, Day Jones settles bias suit by fired paralegal who claimed she was given more work than white colleagues. Jones Day has settled a Haitian-born paralegal's discrimination lawsuit alleging that she was given more work than white staff and was belittled. Let's click that link. And this is an article over in the abajournal.com website written by Deborah Cassens-Weiss. I seem to reference that author quite a bit. Not quite a bit. When I reference something from ABA Journal, it seems to be Deborah Cassens-Weiss. The suit by fired paralegal Judy Thomas settled in advance of an alternative dispute resolution hearing scheduled for March 31st, reports law.com and Law 360. I guess those are the two sources for this. Thomas had worked for Jones Day's Boston office from July 2016 to February 2018, and her February 2021 lawsuit had claimed that the tax and real estate group where she worked displayed an attitude that Ms. Thomas was faking the need to work overtime because she is black and poor. Wow. So somewhere in there it says, let's see. The firm said it fired Thomas because her work was subpar and she lied in a meeting. Thomas maintains that she was fired as a result of complaining. Yeah, and you can't fire people for complaining. So it's not unheard of that people or organizations and the people that drive them find a reason. The suit said Thomas was being sarcastic when she said she lied. Huh? The suit said Thomas was being sarcastic when she said she lied. She said something to the effect of, "No matter what I say, I'm always a liar anyway, but your associates always tell the truth. Okay, fine, I was lying. Either way, you're using this as a ploy to get me fired, so it really doesn't matter what I say." Yeah, that's a level of frustration where a person is being kind of, they feel that they're being driven out. And so obviously nothing is going to be disclosed, but paralegals are an employee of a law firm that is a proxy, essentially a proxy for an attorney. They have to follow all of the rules that an attorney follows. Yet they have to disclose to clients, which is an absolute requirement. You have to disclose to clients and people that you are a paralegal, not an attorney, and that you're following all of the same rules as an attorney, except that you're not representing the client. So confidentiality and disclosures, and you can't provide any, but you also can't provide any legal advice, and you can't talk about fees. And there's so many things that a paralegal is verboten from speaking of, yet bound by all of the rules of the attorney. And they work hard. Oh man, let me tell you, they work really hard. And depending on the firm, they work just as hard, if not harder, because of they're kind of at arm's length. They don't have the legal, they don't have the law school processes they don't have law school, yet they have to follow and do legal research and everything that an attorney does. So basically they do all of the work and don't get any of the joy of being an attorney. Not sure if it's really joy, because attorneys are notorious for drinking a lot. And that's not me making it up or slamming attorneys, believe me. It's literally a meme in the legal field that there's a lot of alcoholics in the legal field. It's so that you can chill, so you can relax. So the next article is in the Mobile channel. The title of this is "The Largest Radio Telescope Ever Built Will Search for Alien Life." So if you've never heard of this, Arecibo used to be um, a, sitting in an extinct volcano and a caldera, and it time-wise, it recently just collapsed. Like one of the cables broke, and all of its overextended weight that was supported by the cables just tore it apart, and now it's gone. Well, this is the world's largest radio telescope, known as the Square Kilometer Array. It is currently taking shape in remote areas of South Africa and Australia. Scheduled to be completed in late 2020s. Interesting phrasing. The sprawling collection of antennae and dishes will use its unprecedented sensitivity to peer deeper into the past than ever before and scan the universe for signs of extraterrestrial life. The skull will be so sensitive that this is a quote, by the way. The skull will be so sensitive that we'll be able to detect an airport radar on a planet that is tens of light years away, said Sherry Breen, head of science operations for the observatory, in a new episode of Motherboard's Space Show. So obviously this pulls us over to Vice.com, and it's Motherboard Tech by Vice. It's such a convoluted naming convention for this, but anyway, radio astronomers Philip Diamond and Sherry Breen talk about the groundbreaking Square Kilometer Array on Motherboard's Space Show. This is an article written by Becky Ferreira, but there is a video, and you can watch it on YouTube, and it's looking for the beginning of the universe, and it's Motherboard's Space Show. So I'm not really going to talk about anything else in this article. I want you to go over to the URL and watch that video. You can get to it by clicking through ohmTown and let me know what you think. And come on back tomorrow. I have one more article. Pardon me one second. Have a little cough. This final article is in the continuity report. Again, it's about movies. And it can be anywhere. It doesn't have to be in a movie theater. TV shows are included in this, sitcoms and things like that. Anything that might have what's referred to as a continuity report, which basically means anything visual. That said, this is about Bill Cosby and why we need to talk about Cosby. The snippet that my aggregator grabbed is, "We need to talk about Cosby. W. Kamau Bell's brilliant 4-part documentary on Showtime is crucial viewing. Why? Because some people still don't believe in his guilt. His 2018 conviction for aggravated indecent assault was overturned, and he's walking around entertaining the possibility of a book and documentary, An Unexpected Coda, which Bell hadn't anticipated, but includes in the series. And because Cosby was hiding in plain sight, a wolf, apologies to wolves, in sheep's clothing, despite the hints he dropped, and there were plenty." The author who writes this says, My jaw was on the floor as I mentally reframed scenes Bell highlighted from The Cosby Show featuring Dr. and Mrs. Huxtable's frisky banter. So you can go over to rogerebert.com and you can search for Why We Need to Talk About Cosby. That's the title of the article. This article was written by Joyce Kulhawik, I think it is. I think it's pronounced Kulhawik. 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 And you should, and I'm going to do this. I can't really say that I was a huge fan of Bill Cosby. But the gaining context for discussion about this kind of thing is important, and so it's going to be an interesting watch. And the show on Showtime is called We Need to Talk About Cosby, so it's just like the article. So let's see if there's anything in here. He wasn't just any kind of doctor. He was an OBGYN who examined women in his home office. That I didn't know. I don't recall that in the show. So I think that there's a lot of relativism, and then if you take the show as part of the history, or I should say the violations that Cosby was accused of, convicted of, and then subsequently overturned, so hence he's not convicted. Anyway, I'd say in society's mind, you're going to have a massive cohort of people that believe that he's still convicted of this and that he's guilty of this. But yeah, with that in mind, I'm going to let you go over to rogerebert.com and read this article. You can click the link in chat and go check it out for yourself. And I'll end up watching it probably this weekend. We'll see. So with that in mind, I'm at the end of my show, but I want to remind everybody that when you go to ohmTown.com, you click the link and you end up with new articles. Those articles get filtered into create, news, education, entertainment, social, and technology categories. And within those are about 50 shows, 50 channels I intend to launch over 2022, over 22 and 2023. It's going to take me longer than I initially predicted, only because I was trying to be really aggressive, and it's just a different, the context has changed. So I will slowly launch shows, and I don't want to turn the daily news show into anything other than a daily news show. So I'll have to add another hour onto each day for another show. And there's no way to start things on the hour at the hour without shortening the show, so that I have time to switch over to another show. I'm a one-person operation here. So I've been running this for an hour and 15 minutes or so, plus 15 minutes prior. So I would have to cut the show down to 45 minutes, and I like having about 20 articles each day. So you can let me know if you are interested in running a show, co-hosting a show, me shortening this down and then doing another show, whatever it might be. Again, there's 50 of them that I plan to launch, and I could easily do one extra hour a day within this framework, without impacting anything else. And I could still do the daily news show, one of the other shows, and stream afterwards, because I want to start streaming games. That was the original, one of the original intents of this, was to be able to play games here in the Late Night Geeks stream each night, stream for a couple of hours. I did that yesterday, by the way, where I streamed Above Snakes, which is a pre-alpha game that was published by Creativo and kickstarted. So if you're interested in that, you can still go and find it. But with that in mind, I'm done for the night. I will see you possibly. I might play a game later tonight. We will see. And I want to thank you for coming. See you tomorrow, 6 p.m.